Hey there, welcome to American Dream TV. I'm Sander Scott, your local real estate expert and local host here in the greater Traverse City area. Today I'm north of Northport at Home Shores Subdivision, and we're going to visit with Scott Robertson, a longtime summer resident out here in Home Shores, and now full-time resident. And we're going to learn all about what this little community has to offer out north of Northport. Lots of waterfront properties and off the water properties. Let's learn more about Home Shores. So I'm here with Scott Robertson, longtime summer resident here in Home Shores, and now full-time resident, right?
That is accurate.
Yeah, yeah.
Thankfully. Absolutely.
Are you pretty excited about that?
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so we're right now in kind of like a common area for all residents in Home Shores Subdivision. This is the clubhouse over here.
Yep.
And you've got pickleball court, tennis court, and then of course, how many different beaches are there available to the residents?
4 shared access beaches.
4 shared access beaches, okay. So this is one of 4.
Yes.
All right.
Along with pickleball and tennis, obviously we've got a basketball court with shuffleboard and then a handball / racquetball wall as well.
Yeah. Don't want to forget about the basketball.
Don't want to forget about that. You know.
Yeah. And actually one of my first public speaking engagements took place right there.
Really?
In the clubhouse. I was best man at my brother's wedding, and we had his reception was here.
Oh, me darn.
Because his wife Carla, her folks had a place here in Cherry Homes.
Oh, me darn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what kind of things go on in the clubhouse? I mean, what?
Well, as you mentioned yourself, I mean, there are residents can reserve the space for private functions, whether it be weddings, wedding receptions, family get-togethers. We also do our annual meeting on these grounds, and we use both the clubhouse and the grassed area outside, depending on weather. And then there's a couple individual groups that are open to the public, open to the membership anyway, that play cards there. There's a group of women that periodically play mahjong at different times in the past. There's been groups of folks that will play poker. It used to be Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock used to be. And so it's really open to whatever needs might arise that someone might want to use.
Yep. Okay. So there's obviously an HOA here, and so the HOA fees include, right, the right to use the clubhouse, the right to use their trails. What other amenities are there available to the residents?
Yeah, so obviously the use of the shared spaces, which includes everything you see here. When you use the clubhouse, so I think I need to clarify that if it's for a private function, there's a slight user fee for that.
Sure.
And typically it goes towards the cleanup of the facility afterwards. But if it's a public function, like there's a chili cook-off that just happened a couple weeks ago, use the clubhouse. All the membership is welcomed, and so there's no fee for that sort of thing. But other amenities, obviously the trails, the access sites, and the beaches, and then what you see here. And in a number of the beaches, you'll see, well, I don't know if they're still out or not, but kayak racks, kayak/paddleboard racks. So that's
when I went to the website, I saw a reminder pop up that says, "Remember to get your kayaks." Yes. Right?
Yeah,
it's the end of the season here.
I think they're supposed to be out before Halloween. I think is what I remember. But it's nice to have for the folks those of us that don't live on the water, rather than lugging your kayaks, your canoes, or paddle boards down to the water to our access sites each time. You can just leave them.
Well, let's not bury the lead. Let's check out one of the awesome beaches here in Home Shores. Yeah, so we're on one of the awesome shared beaches. Obviously, there are lots of waterfront lots here that private. Do you live on the water? Or
I do not.
You're off the water.
Yep.
Okay. But obviously, there are lots of homes on the water in Home Shores. How many total lots? Do you happen to know how many total lots are available throughout the subdivision? I mean,
great question. I'm going to guess a couple hundred. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Okay.
I probably should. I guess.
And you're on the HOA board. Is that correct?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what kind of things does the HOA board do and talk about on behalf of all the different property owners in Home Shores?
So I think one of the main things that we do that I'm most excited about is, and I mentioned to you earlier, we created a survey over a year ago asking the residents what they wanted to see happen with our shared resources on our shared properties. And 25 or 30 ideas came out from that. And what we landed on that were the most popular asks of the community for their HOA funds was the remake of the tennis/pickleball courts.
Okay. Resurfacing
of them, repainting the lines.
Okay.
Just really, making them brand new, looking brand new-ish. And I think that's been done, and a tremendous job there. Another thing that was frequently suggested as a priority for folks was new, because I don't know if you, in the old days, there was a number of other swing set type things, very old, but they didn't meet current safety standards. And so those were removed.
Yeah.
And folks were like, we want to replace those with stuff that does meet the current safety standards and that kids and grandkids and so on can play on. And that's what you see right over there. I mean, that's all brand new. The area itself was, prepared by volunteers here in the community, and we purchased that set and had it installed.
Yeah.
And so those were really the two of the biggest things that our community members spoke up and said we'd really like to see. A couple of the things that were important to them was beautification of the entrance area. You'll probably see out by the sign on the road a lot of flowers, and that's incredibly well managed and taken care of by some volunteers. But that was important, and the continual maintenance and of the trails themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
So those were really the things that the community as a whole, the vast majority of folks thought were important, and that's how we prioritize the expenditures for the last. I've been on the board a year and a half now, and for the last year and a half, that's really been the focus, and that's what we've done.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And really, as far as affordability out here, if you're looking for a lot that's not on the water, I mean, waterfront lots, 50 by 100 or so lots are going for about $100,000 last time I checked.
Might be a little more now.
Might be a little bit more now, yeah.
If you can find one.
If you can find one. Yeah, it was about a year ago the last time I saw a, undeveloped waterfront lot, and it sold for about $100,000. Whereas off water lots are still pretty darn reasonable.
Absolutely.
$20,000 to $30,000 and up, depending on the size, obviously, and the location of the lot. But the other thing is that Cherry Home Subdivision is really located between north of Northport. You're getting near really the tip of the Leelanau Peninsula. A previous American Dream TV episode we featured Leelanau State Park and the Grand Traverse Lighthouse Museum. So we're not quite that far north, but it's only a couple miles past here.
Yep.
And so you are remote, but then there's so many residents in here. You're kind of a community, even though it is remote. There's a nice community here among the residents, right?
Absolutely. And I would say, while we're remote, and as you mentioned, the great thing is we're 6 miles to downtown Northport. The grocery store, restaurants, bars, and I think it's 3 miles to the lighthouse, which is walkable if you want. Certainly ride a bike there easily.
Yeah.
But those are two pretty cool things to have in close proximity.
Yeah. So before we leave the beach and check out the trails and get a flavor of the overall community, this is all nice sandy beach, but there's also an opportunity to find the ever treasured Petoskey stone, right?
World-class Petoskey stone treasure hunting goes on here. And I can tell you, my daughter's now 28 years old, but from the time she was about 5 or 6, she could walk down on this beach and she could find you 5 of them in a 5-minute period of time.
No kidding.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
And so
it's a gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? Right?
There are tons of Petoskey stones to be found here.
Wow.
Obviously, visitors who come love the fact that they can come out here and find them pretty easily.
Now, before we got going on camera, you were talking about a friend of yours who bought a lot and is going to be, building on it at some point in the future. But he had visited with you and thrown up his drone and just share his experience of what his, obviously it made a good impression on him because then he bought a lot.
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, actually worked with him for 8 years, came up, stayed at our place, hung out, and then he and his wife had paddleboard, and he had a drone, and they came down, and she was paddleboarding on one of those Chamber of Commerce days, no wind, it was an 80-degree day, the water was perfectly flat. She had a blast out paddling around. He had his drone up filming him, and he came back to me and was like, oh my goodness, this is Michigan's Caribbean.
Yeah.
The water, the beauty, it was striking. And you're right, so much so that a month later he purchased a lot that's literally right over here, right across the drive from the clubhouse here.
Yeah. These are all county maintained roads?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
So all the roads throughout Cherry Home Shores county maintained?
They are.
Okay. And so really the HOA, do you recall how much the HOA fees are?
Oh my goodness.
Per year?
It's ridiculously low, but I think it's $75 per lot.
Oh, no kidding.
For the year.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not more than 100. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the trail system starts over here.
Yeah. Okay. So this right here shows all the different trails. I mean, this is all of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is called far north. I think this is north. I think this is middle.
Yeah.
But
So whether it's the shared accesses or the trails or everything, those are not really for the public. Those are for the residents.
correct.
Who are property tax payers within
Yeah.
Cherry Home Shores Subdivision. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the $75 per lot goes to maintain the trails, the clubhouse where we first started,
Sure.
and the public accesses.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah.
So somewhat controversial issue within Cherry Home Shores was related to an ongoing issue throughout all of northern Michigan, and that's short-term rentals. Because there's an HOA here, that's really where what was written in those HOA documents really ended up coming to the fore as it relates to weekly rentals or short-term rentals, right? Rentals less than 30 days
Sure.
in Cherry Home Shore Subdivision, right?
Sure. There. It's undeniable, but there's a recent history. But quite frankly, that the conflict that arose as a result of enforcement of those regulations, policies, whatever you might want to call them, has really calmed itself. You don't see the up north vacation rentals or any of the other organizations that do vacation rentals signs in anyone's yards here now. And the courts have spoken, and stood by the writing and the letter of the documents. And quite frankly, it's not.
It's not controversial. I mean, it was controversial, but it's not anymore.
It was definitely a point of conflict that, with the help of courts, was resolved itself. And but I think folks have moved on from that.
Yeah.
And the long and short of it is, family and friends, absolutely, but short-term rentals, is something that is forbidden. So.
Yep. So that's one thing that actually, in the village of Northport, there's no restriction on short-term rentals. In the township, Leelanau Township, there's not. But because Cherry Home Shores Subdivision has an HOA, the HOA says nothing shorter than a 30-day rental. And yet there were for some time, and then that was where the controversy came in. But now, just if you're looking for a place that's for a short-term rental as an investor, you're not looking in the right place if you're looking at Cherry Home Shore Subdivision.
I
right?
would say that's an accurate assessment.
Yeah. And it's still a great place for a summer home. It's been your summer home for how long?
25 years now?
25 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So for family, friends, that kind of thing, but commercially, if we're investors, not the appropriate place to look.
I would agree with that.
Plenty of places to look elsewhere in the Northport-area, but
Sure.
But even it's a tough issue everywhere because I was telling a friend the other day when we were talking about the village of Northport, and it relates to the short-term rentals in the village, that I can count about 10 different homes that are now being used as short-term rentals that
Oh,
when I
wow.
was a kid, they were occupied by year-round families with multiple children,
Sure.
and the school keeps shrinking, and yet on the other side of that, I know that that's how some of my friends have been able to hang on to their homes too, is because now they use them as short-term rentals, so it
Sure.
provides them income. It's a tough issue, but it's worked itself out here in Cherry Home Shores.
I believe so.
So we're at the trailhead here,
We are.
and let's go for a walk. Let's check out these trails.
Absolutely.
All
Let's
right.
go. The great thing about this too is that, I mean, obviously you can walk it any time of the year, and in the wintertime, people will snowshoe back here or
Cross-country ski, yeah. So while we said there weren't many vacant lots left throughout, there still are some, and so somebody that's looking to buy and then eventually build, there's some HOA rules around that, like an architectural committee, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Plans are, the association asks that plans are submitted to our architectural committee, and for approval. And there's some minimum standards for square footage. So a single family or a single story home has to be 800 square feet or larger, and a 2-story has to be 1,150 square feet or larger.
Okay.
So no one's trying to make people build McMansions.
Sure.
But,
Yeah.
I think those are pretty reasonable expectations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, are there any other HOA rules that somebody should be aware of if they're considering purchasing in Cherry Home Shores?
I don't think there's a whole ton of restrictive rules. I think by and large, there's just some basic guidelines, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the build guidelines, the rentals, as you mentioned, guidelines. But beyond that, I don't feel like the HOA is overly restrictive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you've got some cool community events that go on. What are some of those?
Well, yearly we do a meeting of all the membership, and that's when votes for the board happen, and people have an opportunity to share, their thoughts about anything that might be on their minds, and that happens at the clubhouse. And along with that, typically the day of or the day after is like a barbecue, cookout type of deal. And then, recently there was a chili cook-off. And as I mentioned before, there's groups that play cards periodically throughout the course of the year there. There was a Dark Skies event not terribly long ago that one of our members hosted there, open to all the membership.
Yeah.
Which, if you're familiar with the Dark Skies, that's a really cool opportunity to learn about, the beauty of the night sky.
Yeah. Boy, we've had some great northern lights lately, haven't we?
Absolutely. and there's been several wine tastings that have gone on here. I mean, we're minutes from all kinds of great wineries.
Yeah.
So why not have a wine tasting here?
Yeah. In fact, that's one of the things you do now as a retirement gig, right?
I drive the wine tour bus.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you visit all of the wineries in Leelanau out on Old Mission too, or
both? Yeah. We do the company I work for does tours on both peninsulas, the Leelanau Peninsula and the Old Mission Peninsula, and we go to a ton of the different wineries throughout, and we do join-in tours. People just meet at the Civic Center. We go from there and take them up either peninsula, and we do private events, private tours where groups of people say, hey, we want to go to these 5 or 4 or however many wineries, and we take them as well.
Yeah, for the benefit of the viewers, you and I first got to know each other because you were coming up and I was pumping gas for my folks at the gas station.
Absolutely.
We knew each other for a long, long time, and then worked together at a brief stint in Traverse City area public schools. And
I used to drive by your folks' house to go fish at Kill Lake almost every day in the summertime when I did get an opportunity to be up here too. So
that your previous career, you were an athletic director, you were public school official basically, and then have retired out of that, and now we're doing some consulting. And
so actually I started off as a teacher coach for 15 years. Taught high school special ed for 15 years at 2 different schools. Coached football, baseball, wrestling, and track at different times. And then for the last 17 years of my career in the public schools, I was an athletic director. Retired from that, and so now I actually consult for the Michigan High School Athletic Association.
Okay.
I am one of 8 statewide mentors for first-year ADs, and so I've got a group of 15 or 16 ADs that are in their first year that I'm responsible for mentoring. And so I do that, and then I also drive the wine tour bus.
Drive the wine tour bus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. How did you get involved in the wine tour bus? I mean, I can see it. The consulting seems like a natural progression.
So the consulting piece is definitely very full part-time, right? And with my wife still continuing to work, she had to work until January this year. So she's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm not the kind of guy that's going to sit around. I can't. And I said I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. And there were 2 things I didn't want to do. One, I didn't want to make a lot of decisions because I felt like for the last 30 plus years, 32 years, I've made a lot of decisions. And the other thing is I didn't want to be around people who weren't having fun. And so she actually found this job for me. My wife did. She saw a posting for it online and said, why don't you take a look at this? I don't think you'll make a lot of decisions. I think you'll be around people having a good time drinking wine. And I already had my CDL, ironically, the commercial driver's license. I got that so I could drive buses with our athletic teams if we ran short of a bus driver on a given day.
Well, that's another thing we have in common. I have a CDL too. Yeah.
Right, perfect. I mean, and so when I went in, I met with the owner of the wine tour company, and I just said, I'm interested. And he's like, let's see, public school educator, retired, CDL, probably going to pass the background check, probably going to be all right. That probably understands the importance of being on time.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure
being
you are.
responsible.
Yeah.
And probably can talk to folks because you've been, talking to folks a lot.
Yeah.
And honestly, the long and short of it is I've been doing it about 15, 16 months now, and it's been exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, there's some long nights, we do some weddings and some bachelorette parties and bachelor parties, and some of those go late into the morning hours. So the hours are long, but we're used to long hours. We were an administrator as well. Yeah. So long hours aren't
especially athletic directors. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of long hours. But again, I mean, it's people having fun.
Right.
In every instance, I'm around people having a great time.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. Yeah. It's been a great time.
Now, as you reflect on when you weren't a full-time resident up here, you were full-time down
Grand Rapids, Holland
area.
A couple different locations there.
And so as you reflect on the times when you'd come up to your summer cottage here, what were some of the things the most that you were looking forward to?
Well, so I would tell you what I would look forward most to, the hustle and bustle of our everyday lives. My wife and I both. She's in a pretty high stress public school education job as well. But we'd drive up and we'd hit about Traverse City. Once we kind of got through the chaos that can be Traverse City on occasion, once we got through that and we're heading up the peninsula, it literally physically felt like 100 pounds off your back and could breathe. And it's not an exaggeration to say like it was physical and mental. Get past Traverse City and I'm like, okay, quieter, slower, calmer, beautiful. And the ride up 22 with the West Bay on your right-hand side, it's hard to complain about that drive. In
fact, a local company's built its brand off of that M22 drive, right?
Which has become famous, not just locally, but on a larger scale.
Worldwide,
So much so that knuckleheads will steal the doggone signs off.
Right.
The poor road commission has to batten those things down. But no, what we look forward to the most, obviously the scenic beauty, the calmness of it, and the pace. A lot of us, and educators aren't unique. A lot of other professions, you feel like 1,000 things are coming at you at one time, all the time. Up here, it never feels like that. There's just a different pace to life. Yeah. And very much have enjoyed that. For the better part of 25 years, it was long weekends. It was a week or two in the summertime, and it was occasional holiday break where we could get to do it. And now I'm pretty close to being able to do it all the time. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about up here.
Yeah. So when you are talking to, or when you were talking with people down near Grand Rapids, Holland area, and you were talking about your summer place, is there anything we haven't covered so far that you would talk about to them about what you liked about whether it was Cherry Homes, Northport, or Leelanau County in general.
Well, I would just say, like, it's interesting to me that because Northport is, we are kind of out, right, at the tip of the peninsula. It's not a pass-through town. People don't.
You don't come here by
You
accident.
don't. People don't come drive through here. I mean,
Yeah.
other places are pass-through towns because they're on the way from point A to point B. But it's amazing to me that how often people go, "Oh my God, Northport! That's such a cool place." I've been there one. Yeah, I had a friend that there's this connection. And honestly, if someone didn't know anything about this, here's an example I'll give you. I hosted. There's a group of about 25 guys I played college football with, and I played in Colorado, and they're from all over the country. And of those 25 guys, only 2 had ever been to the state of Michigan before. One was only in Detroit for business, and the other one lives in Chicago, and he and his family have come up here to visit us a number of times. But the other 23 came here for the first time 2 summers ago, and because I was hosting our annual get-together, and every single one of them amazed by the beauty, the water, the cleanliness, and the quiet that you can find here. And then what we did with that, we played in the water. We took jet skis out in the bay, and we hung out at the Central Park where we just were, a Clubhouse Park where we just were, and that was fun. But then we literally toured Leelanau. We rented a boat on Lake Leelanau, did a pontoon, and had a ball on the sandbar and just putzing around. We went to a number of the wineries along the Leelanau Peninsula, and they loved just being downtown Northport.
Yeah.
They loved going to the New Bohemia Cafe for breakfast, and the garage, what used to be the garage, and now it's fingers crossed for a drink or the mitten. They loved all those things. And I was surprised. Again, these are folks from California to New York City and everywhere in between. Yeah. And they were like, the beauty here just captured. Yeah. That's what it's about. Yeah. It's about the quiet, calm, and nature's beauty.
Speaking of quiet, somebody's doing some kind of work over here. It's creating a heck of a racket.
Somebody's gobbling up some trees on a mulcher or something. And if you like to hike or bike or just walk, you can hike, and there's beautiful, awesome places to hike and bike and snowshoe or cross-country ski. All those kind of outdoor activities, whether it's beach-based or not, they're all right here. Yeah. All you got to do is open the door and walk outside.
Yeah. And, unlike some of the other communities within Leelanau County, I mean, one of the things that had never occurred to me growing up in Northport, it was actually another real estate agent when I was a kid said something to the effect of, well, Northport has a bona fide grocery store. And I was like, what is that? But you really think about it, I mean, Tom's Food Market is a chain that's mostly in Traverse City, and they've got, a grocery store here in Northport. Right. And one of my older brother, one of my closest friends growing up, lives out here in Cherry Homes. He doesn't have a reason to go south of Northport. Omina's, like, he'll go to not just a bar but he's like, I don't need to go south of Omina. And
quite frankly, if there was something you wanted to do in Traverse City, it's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not to me, which to me, quite frankly, and all things are relative in terms of that, but that's not a far drive either. Yeah. If there was something, if you wanted to go to a big box store for whatever reason, or you wanted to go to a movie theater, well, I love the Suttons Bay movie theater. You don't have to go very far for that. But if there was a reason that you wanted to go to Suttons Bay for any reason, to Traverse City, it's not very far.
It's not very far. Yeah. And, it's only been recently Northport lost its hospital and really doesn't have a clinic anymore. So Suttons Bay, as far as healthcare goes, they've got pharmacies, a couple of different pharmacies, healthcare clinics. And obviously you've got Munson then in Traverse City, like you said, not too far away. Well, is there anything else about Cherry Home Shores that we haven't covered that you think people ought to know?
Well, I think we haven't covered like the people themselves. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's most pleasant here is that you almost, anytime you pass someone, whether they're walking or you're walking or you're in a car, right, they take the time to wave and say hi, sometimes say hi, or stop and talk. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my wife's like, what were you doing outside? Well, a neighbor walked by, we chatted it up. People know each other and they care to know each other and they say hi. And it's not, again, one of the beauties of small town America is it's not the hustle and bustle of big city where you got to get from point A to point B in such a hurry. that you can't say hi to a neighbor. People say hi to neighbors here, and they help each other out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if someone's stuck in the snow, which could happen, could happen up here on occasion, they help. And that's just that's and the folks working at the Tom's Market in town.
Yeah.
The folks that run your folks' old gas station.
Yeah.
And you don't find that everywhere, and I think that's one of the unique things that I like so much myself.
Yeah, yeah. And when I go to the store, they're always asking how my folks are doing. There's you get that in Northport in general, but then obviously this is like the community within the community
Sure.
out here in Cherry Homes. So yeah.
And there becomes kind of a rhythm to it because of the several hundred lots that are here, and there's, I'm guessing, 150 of them that are actually built on, because a lot of folks have more than one lot too. But there's a small segment that are year-round, and there's a lot more that come periodically, whether it's vacationers or summertime residents or whatever it might be. But there's a rhythm to that, and it's kind of neat because you'll notice the neighbor who's always here 4th of July weekend, right? And it's one of the few times you might see that neighbor. But you pick up where you left off, and they're neighbors, and you say hi, and that part's wonderful. When we were part-time, we were really lucky that Nancy, the wonderful lady that lives next, right near us, we had a tree one time come and lay on the side of our garage roof. Within hours of it happening, she was on the phone with me, letting me know. That neighbors don't have to do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Neighbors don't have to pay attention and be willing to give you a call and let you know those things. But here they do.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, gosh, Scott, I really appreciate you taking the time to share a lot about your community out here, Cherry Home, north of Northport. And, honestly, I've driven by the sign all my life, but we always just called it Cherry Homes. But technically, it's Cherry Home Shores, right? Yeah, Cherry Home Shores. So, yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet.
Thanks for joining me on the latest episode of American Dream TV as we got to learn all about Cherry Home Shores Subdivision north of Northport on the tip of the Leelanau Peninsula, Michigan. Thanks so much. Until the next episode, we'll see you then.